Hey everyone, it is Build Your Dream Network virtual water cooler time, in case you're wondering why that music was playing on my LinkedIn profile. Anyway, I am so excited to be here with my buddy, Candi Cross, who is, as I said in a tweet, ghostwriter extraordinaire. Ooh. Good morning.
Good morning, and I love that title. Thank you so much. That's a first.
Well, I was on a podcast recently, Communications Czar, and I'm like, ooh, yeah, Czar. That's a good title. You know?
We have to keep it vivid. We have to keep communication alive.
And storytelling and all of that.
Yes.
Okay. Let's talk about, because I kind of know the answer to this. So you've been, let's work backwards, ghostwriter, journalist. But when did your writing career start?
My writing career started in Cincinnati, Ohio. And that was my birth city and everything. And actually, at the time, the hometown of Writer's Digest books. And I was eyeing an editorial internship. My degree was in classical literature with a minor in journalism. So I was happy in any form of professional writing, though my love was always books.
Yeah, so I think your writing career started well before then.
Yeah, yes. I was writing for arts magazines and newspapers.
No, earlier, go back earlier.
Even earlier. So third grade essay contest. How about that? Yes. And the subject of the essay, this was an international contest. It was called What a Family Means to Me. That, family topics are always, they are what they are, right? Yeah. So there was, in reality, I had written prior to that, it's almost as if I saw my life unfolding in stories, because I wrote, the first thing I really wrote that I consider professional was a 20-page short story called A Clown That Just Wasn't Happy. And I even drew the cover.
Wow. I love this. Because I love this. Good morning, Diana. I hope all is well in Colombia.
Yeah, awesome.
I love this. Thank you from checking in from Istanbul. I hope you're well.
Wow.
And yes, Evie, I know, third grade. Third grade. This one is like
third grade teachers rock. Mrs. Simmons, wherever you are, I tell you.
Well, and I think it's also important, and why I was, because hey, you and I know each other, and I kind of knew that the third grade story came in. I think there's times when we want to do something when we're young, and an adult, meaning well, says, yes, but you'll never make a living doing that, so why don't you? And this thing that is our talent and fabulousness gets, crushed.
I know, it's so unfortunate. I hear this day in, day out. And the one thing that I will say about my childhood, not one person told me that I was not going to make a living writing or that I shouldn't do it. In fact, at the time, I also had aspirations to be an actress. You're probably not surprised by that, Kelly, just, based on my personality. I'm one of those super extroverted writers. So, and you know what? I was an average actress in college. I had several starring roles and everything, but I was never fully satisfied with what I was doing, and it was competing with newspaper deadlines and things like that. And ultimately, I chose the profession of writing, fortunately.
Yeah.
But
yeah, you break, in some ways, you break the stereotypical mold of writers being, quieter.
Quiet, smoke. I have a few friends like that, smoking endless cigarettes, holed up in their attic and their brilliance. Yet a little sociopathic at times.
I love it. I want to give a few more shout outs because I see some familiar names. Hey, Helena, good to see you in London. Helena's part of a networking mastermind for women that I've been beta testing, and so there. And hello, Grace. Oh, Grace, you're up early, so this is not mid-morning coffee. You know, I want to say water cooler chat for you.
Water cooler.
Morning coffee. And Adriana from Ecuador. Yeah, I'm going to say yes, and exactly that, EV. Lots of us write things and they don't go past the classroom.
Well, I love the fact that Yvonne said she wrote a horror story in 2nd grade. Horror was up my alley too, early on.
Well, we're going to talk about one of your new books. Okay.
Let's talk.
So you have this passion writing, you go off to school, journalism, writing, creative writing, all this kind of stuff. You did journalism for a while. When did you hit this groove? And I'm not like, oh, you did journalism for a while. You did some serious... Oh, sorry, this is like potty time on virtual walk. You did some serious fucking journalism, right? You did a deep and investigative stories. Just give a highlight on that.
You said that. So yeah, I would highlight one. I think first of all, if I may just add a little bit of context to the college experience for me, I stood out in the way that I merged my love of classical literature with what I knew to be modern. You know, I was always into social justice and an activist and advocate for many different issues that touched my own life. And, you know, going to school and being raised in Ohio and Kentucky, completely different climate, but I learned early on, I think, and again, to the honor of my professors, that they encouraged me to merge both. So I took technical writing and technical editing, which gave me a star contract, lo and behold, with GE aircraft carriers. At that time, I was the only woman of a staff of 40 and walked in like I was the thing, you know, because I was in charge of all the editorial of the manuals. So there was that, and then there was the fusion of the creative aspects. And, you know, so I felt like I could bring something that was a little bit more emotional to the journalistic experience, which of course is a hard, you know, no, I don't know, these days it's all pretty foggy. Yeah. Between commentary and hard news. Sometimes you can't tell the difference.
That's awesome. Hello from South Carolina, since we're talking a little Kentucky, doing a little South there.
We are, bring South into the mix.
And clearly my West Coast, you know, people are understanding, you know, grew up in Victoria, British Columbia. They're all showing up for morning water cooler. And yes, Kathy Sandler, yay for professors and those who like encourage us and make the connection between things that, you know, others. Bonjour. There we go. There's the extent of
my honeymoon was in Paris. France is near and dear to my heart.
Exactly. There we go. You and I can have a wistful moment that we're not in Paris.
And we're going to go as soon as this all lifts. We're going to go all around the world. Rider world.
You know, have vaccine, will travel. Okay, so you've done this technical writing. You've done this deep investigative journalism. When did you kind of, how did that, you know, move into this ghostwriting, incredible storytelling, I would say place and space that you have found yourself?
So in the early 2000s, which to some degree feels so long ago, I helped found an international women's magazine, and we wanted to be on the cutting edge of featuring everything that wasn't 10 ways to get a man, per se. That was literally our tagline. You know, we had Missy Elliott on the cover. We went all the way to Cuba to interview Castro's daughter. I mean, there was just a lot of mismatch of this magazine, and one of the best times of my life, going broke, literally. You know, people's bills were not getting paid back in the day for this venture, but I will never forget it. my best friends came out of that. But one of the interviews that I was fortunate enough to get for a cover story, it was on women's roles in war, was Benazir Bhutto.
Wow.
She was in exile in Dubai at the time, and I'm starting to get emotional even thinking about that time period and knowing, who knew that she would get assassinated, I think, for her take on peace and trying to bridge, India and Pakistan at the time and advocating for world peace however she could. But the family going back many generations is extremely controversial and steeped in, political dominance, and sometimes you couldn't tell the difference, and that's not my culture per se, but to be able to feature her, and it was from afar, she gave me written responses. We couldn't do a phone call, we couldn't meet, anywhere, obviously. That kind of set the stage for me that I wanted to go deeper into story to help bring impact, and that's many years before we hear influencers, impact, all that. But this was my take on impact at that time. And there's only so much space, as in a 5-page cover story or whatever, and it's there, but then it doesn't go beyond that. Whereas books do change lives.
I would say your editorial self was like, that side of your brain was like thwarting your storytelling part of your brain. It was like, I've only got 5 pages. And it needs more.
I kid you not, back in the day, and not to say I don't have a little tiny procrastinator inside myself too, but it's not because I don't want to do the work. It's more about the whole perfectionism thing and just start. I get very hung up on a captivating introduction.
Yeah.
That's the end all be all for me, even though, as you know, you got 250 pages ahead of you, lady, to write. Like, you got to get through this introduction. I mean, it happens.
Hello. Delia wanted to know, what was the name of your magazine again?
Fierce Magazine.
Awesome title.
You're
ahead of your time, lady.
Tara Roberts, who's one of my dearest friends, she's worked, I don't even want to state because I don't want to get anything wrong, but one of her recent endeavors has been to work for National Geographic in the documentary filmmaking department of ships, like slave ships, and history going back centuries, and for which she had to dive, and that was her heart and blood is in journalism as well, so we had all that in common.
Yeah. Oh, and then so the follow-up question is Fierce still available online or anywhere? Is there an archive?
No, it is not. We no, I'm mourning as well, I tell you. We put out a politics issue at the height of the Bush administration, 2004, 2005. We had done March for Women's Lives. And at that time, we had thousands of magazines in our van that we drove from Atlanta, Georgia to Washington, D.C. No sleep whatsoever. We literally wrecked the van twice in this trip. I was driving one time and I sideswiped a pole, but but that was the tenacity. It was because we literally, like, I was dreaming of that March. I was dreaming of Fierce Magazine, every single night. We just could not sleep. We were so hell-bent on spreading the word of this magazine, getting sponsors. We contacted Oprah at the time, and we got phenomenal responses. Just put a room of creatives together that have the utmost talent, yet no business or financial experience. Excuse my language. Fucking disaster in the way if you want to keep it afloat,
Right.
But lo and behold, we put 6 issues out, and so yeah.
Oh man. I'm going to note this, and then I want to dive into. So I love it, Randy. Good morning, Randy. Great to see you, Randy from the IEEE. So yes, I know. Bonding with the pillow behind.
Everyone knows in my life I'm pretty bold. So
bold. There we go. I love it. Okay. All right. So you want to tell these bigger stories knowing that you need more than 5 pages. You've written, what, 150? You've been a ghostwriter in like 150 or more books?
Ghostwriter / editor. Yeah, I've been part of the development of about 150 at this point.
Wow, 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 wow.
Even then, my mom insisted on trying to count articles that I published, and then she would add zeros to the mix. So finally, I was like, you know what? Stop counting. I just want fulfillment in my life, and this is my dream. This is my passion and purpose. So just put the books on your shelves. Don't count them.
Listen, mom wants a vanity metric like, the kids do with social media. Let her have it. All right. So who are the types of clients that you work with? What are the stories that you like to tell?
Whew. And Kelly, I woke up thinking about this as well, because I've had 3 people contact me in the past week for stories and collaboration, each one so vastly different, yet so rich in some way, whether it be the story or the person. I can fall in love with the story or the person. Hopefully it's both. 6 months to a year collaboration, it doesn't work well if there's no chemistry in the mix and it just becomes logistics and deadlines. That's not how I work. There has to be some level of, it's almost like a romantic interest, frankly. I don't think I can do my best job if I don't have some type of investment in the person or the story getting out to the world.
Yeah.
Just so you do in the dating process,
Yeah. So the stories, in terms of the people's stories themselves, is there I'm going to say, with these stories, is there a category that you could put them in, or is it like, no, they're across the board, but here are some elements of the type of people who ideally you get this chemistry and you like what they're having to talk about?
There is some type of triumphant through line. Whether it is a book on intergenerational trauma, I'm working with a brilliant woman who is the daughter of a Vietnam vet, and her working through her life, actually through dreams and through the eyes of her father's experience. If you know anything about the Vietnam War, everything was so hush hush. Everything is, where are the stories going if they're not going internally in some way, whether it be through the trauma of it or what the aftermath is for the families, country, culture, all that. So, that's one I will set aside, and that's very educational, and it brings in her emotional experience as well. But it could be the experience of millions of people. I look for the greatest impact possible.
I love
wide variety of topics, nonfiction, but there has to be some personal story involved. Even business books. I've done a lot of women's leadership books. There has to be the element of the personal narrative for people to care. Otherwise, you're competing with 2 million other books a year, frankly, that go out the door.
Yeah. Well, we can talk. I want to get some do's and don'ts for, writers, aspiring writers, people entering into.
Oh, that's always fun.
Because exactly, the volume of options. But talk about your latest book, which I am personally excited about.
Not Afraid to Slay.
Not Afraid to Slay. Okay, tell us how you came to find that story, because I know there's a story and a book behind that story.
Yeah.
And talk about this whole world you discovered of women who like to spook and scare.
So 3 years ago now, I was approached by a wonderful businessman in Holdridge, Nebraska, in the agriculture industry. He wanted to do a marketing book, quote unquote. Now, somebody comes to me for a marketing book, it's usually going to be something vastly different than what they're coming to me for. And lo and behold, his is a recovery story, an amazing recovery story. He is a just a blessing, and I think an iconic figure for anyone who has struggled with any type of addiction, frankly, you know, and the amazing things that he did through his recovery in agriculture and, you know, basically the food that we eat every day, what the story behind that. So there's that. And when I was on my immersion trip, because I typically meet most of my authors in person and spend several days with them, you know, during that, I met his amazing wife, and she's like, oh, you have to come and see my haunted house. So I was like, well, these days, haunted house could be Halloween haunted house, a commercial house, or something of the paranormal.
Right. Right. What are we talking about?
Either way, I was super inquisitive. So I pretty much dropped everything with Steve, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to... And he's like, oh, okay, meet me later for dinner or whatever. So in any case, she took me on a tour through the house. But what came out of that, and, you know, I've always loved Halloween and the theatrics and anything that's expressive. I feel like we need that as a human society in whatever vein, escape rooms or, you know, comedy, anything that brings you out of the here and now is all part of the human experience. You know, it's all part of life. And she was telling me that she started this haunt in front yard, messed up a few trees in the yard. And of course, Steve was upset about that, you know, this beautiful house. And then lo and behold, it got so massive over a couple of years. She found this gray house and turned it into a commercial haunted house. And it's top of the line in the state of Nebraska. Every year it wins amazing awards and all that. And what happened through her story is introducing me to other women who either own haunts, you know, haunted houses, frankly, or are at the top of their game, you know, designing escape rooms for big entities like Universal and animatronics and just this whole illustrious world that's kind of underground.
Yeah.
That is what the book is about. I mean, honestly, because of COVID last year, you know, a lot of wonderful things came out of this, not pandemic itself. I just want to say time period during quarantine, bringing people closer, and, you know, what creatives have been able to do during this time, you know, that's helped their own growth. I'll just say that. So she, you know, Steve called me and was like, you know, Jan's house is, she can't open the haunted house this year. You've got to, like, you know, you've got to give her some therapy. And I need that therapy to be in the form of capturing her story.
Right. And then in hearing her story, you realize is this, like, how big is this industry?
So the industry is massive. Should know some of the statistics that I put in the introduction just to paint the picture of, first of all, you know, the United States has owned this industry for the most part up until like 2015. And now in Europe, Japan, places like Europe and Japan have then bought into movie industry of the United States to bring props over and just really high-end set designs and all that. We're talking millions of dollars, you know, from the United States to then start their businesses there.
Yeah.
So it's gotten bigger and bigger. And I think this year in particular, mark my words, you know, come September, October timeframe, it's a piece of escapism. I think it's going to be massive. I think you're going to see, you know, as the world opens up. And now haunted houses aren't just for Halloween. A lot of them open up during the holiday season, November, December. They do Christmas shows. They do lights out extravaganzas to where you can bring a group of your friends with a flashlight and get timed on certain challenges and things like that. And now it's online as well. There's one called Secret Library that's just a beautiful design, and it's like hidden clues in a library that you find and you pull yourself out of these rooms. In any case, all to say, all of it was a feel-good project to work on.
That's awesome.
During this time.
Give the name of the book again for everybody.
It's Not Afraid to Slay.
Not afraid to
And
say.
the co-author is Jan Knuth. We've co-authored this officially, and it's Woman of the Han Industry.
I love this. I love this. I'm gonna twist your arm to come back with Jan so we can talk about like that collaboration process and how, you know, writing a book and doing that with somebody else and how that feels from, you know, I say the client point of view.
Yeah.
And I love that there's like the women getting in this industry. So this is, or like doing so many creative things. Cause I don't know, let's go back to thinking about when you were in college, I was in college. Would you have thought, like, can you imagine going to your parents saying, you know what I want to do for a living? I want to get into the haunt business.
Hell to the no. Although I have to say to my parents, they're no longer here though, but they never once stopped me from doing whatever I wanted. I mean, if anything, it was kind of free for all in this crazy family in which, okay, you need to, you know, find yourself, go find yourself. Like, and that's who we're going to know and love. I was fortunate to grow up in that facet with those freedoms.
That's amazing. All right, let's talk some do's and don'ts. I have a wonderful group of authors that I do a clubhouse with twice a week. So shout out to Zoe and Paulina in particular who put that together. We always share resources, but you as from where you sit, working as that collaborator, working as that partner in somebody else's book project, what are some suggestions? Let's put it that way. They could be positive suggestions or negative suggestions. Do you have, particularly for first-time writers who may not know?
First-time writers, and as cliche as it sounds, but I'll get into the heart of this, is to start, period. Because there's always debates about outline or not and whether they write. I mean, my wife writes fiction and she's like, you know what? I've learned all these years. I don't like outlines. Okay. If you can keep track of the characters, their situations that they're going through, you're writing their life cycles through a story. In my mind, because I work with nonfiction, although in college I did write a couple of short stories. One was published called Releasing the Witch. I'll just leave it at that.
Maybe foretelling the future of this current book. All right.
But the keen advice really, and if you're writing your life story, write it in themes, write it in, you know, memories. It doesn't have to be chapter 1 or what do I put in chapter 1? Don't get caught up in structure because it's only you. And even when I work with authors, I emphasize if you have a certain writing routine or a time window that is completely yours, whether that be 20 minutes a day, honestly, I've been in that same predicament over and over and over again. We get caught up in, we want these huge, luxurious chunks. I mean, one of my dreams is to have a castle in Ireland and bring other writers there on retreat time to where we can have entertainment. That's the ultimate dream. But it is, Kelly, it's born out of a place like, oh, I need this whole luxurious chunk of time so I can just focus. Usually our lives don't work like that. The more important piece, if you see a bigger purpose, and this is what drives story and for people to finish, they don't have to be an excellent writer. They didn't have to have an education per se. Make sure you get the core components down of the story itself. Then the mechanics can come. It's just like building a house. You know, you're not going to build a house in the same day that you bring the decor and all that. So that's one thing. Don't get caught up in structure. Just write it all down, even if it's free flow thinking on the pages.
Yeah, I used to have a keychain. Someone gave it to me when I was starting to write my book, and it was write drunk, edit sober.
Yeah, I've seen that a lot too.
Yeah, it sort of picks up on that idea. Like just write, just do it. Don't worry about the other stuff after you've gotten the words
down.
down.
And it is not at that stage, even though I'm a wordsmith, I'll get at it. It's not about words itself. It really is about themes. And also hang on to why are you doing this in the first place?
Right.
We often forget. Listen, when I worked in the corporate world, you tend to wake up sometimes about days like, why the hell am I doing this? Like, why am I going, you got to recenter yourself in that core purpose. And usually the purpose, the objectives for doing a book is to, it's always a cathartic process to tell your story. It is healing. It is empathy world over. But there's usually something grander for the individual, whether it's to get on the speaking circuit or, credentials, business development, or really like societal impact. Hang on to that. That drives you. Usually the routine doesn't. The day-to-day minutia. Sometimes it's like you don't want to write. You don't want to create. That purpose never goes away though. And that's what it's the type that doesn't let you sleep at night unless you're working toward that goal.
Yep. Yeah. I love it. Love it. Those are some wise words, my friends. I got so much more to talk to you about. So the good news is I'll bug you to come back and, have another cuppa with me.
I'll hang out anytime. I have my Broadway cup right here, actually.
Love it. So thank you. And, get Jan here to talk about the haunt industry. I love it. And
you're so excited about that. We got to go out for Halloween this year, apparently, because I couldn't see it in your face.
You know what? I think maybe just going outside and seeing people might just scare me.
Exactly. We can create our own Halloween festivities today.
The way I've been dressing, working from home, that's been a scary thing for most people.
Sometimes it feels like a fright, doesn't it?
I love it. This has been sheer joy.
So honored. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll get you back here again really soon.
Contact me anytime.
Awesome.
Anytime, friend.
All right.
People around the world who are here with us.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, and Candi's website, youtalkiwrite.com. Boom, there it is. See, You Talk, I Write. That's why she put her name like that on the video. All right. Thank you very much. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Pay attention to follow me on LinkedIn so that you see these virtual water coolers when they come up. We've got some other great authors and other folks coming in, not just authors, but I'm kind of into talking to authors right now, particularly female authors. That's it for today. Go be productive, conquer the world, and to borrow a line from somebody else's email, stay positive and test negative. Good one.